The name of the new chapter we are going to study is the story of the village Palampur. Production is the key to the economic development of a country, and production can be agriculture like cultivation of crops or industrial like manufacturing of goods. Palampur is an imaginary village and it could be in any part of the India. Palampur is well connected by road to bigger neighboring villages known as Raiganj and also to the nearest town of Shapur. Tongas, bullock carts, bogies, motorcycles, jeeps, trucks, tractors, all these are used to transport people and goods on this road. Palampur is also a small village which is inhabited by 450 families. 80 upper caste families live in Palampur. They have pakka houses made of brick and cement plaster. Dalits account for about one-third of the total population of Palampur and they live in a corner of a village in small houses made of mud and straw. Houses in Palampur, they have electricity connections and they are used to run tube wells in the fields and also support the local businesses. Palampur has two primary schools and one high school where the children can study. The residents of Palampur, they also have access to good healthcare services. Agriculture is the main occupation in Palampur. Upper caste families, they own a majority of the cultivable land in Palampur. Other farmers, they own small plots of the land or landless and they work as laborers in the fields of wealthy landowners. People of Palampur, they are also engaged in non-farming activities like shopkeeping, dairy, small-scale manufacturing and transportation services. Production activities they require natural resources like land and water and man-made resources like raw material, human effort and intelligence and also of course money. Organization of production. Goods and services we use, they are made available to us through production process. The four factors of production are land, labor, physical capital and human capital. Land is the first requirement of production. Land as a production factor, it also includes other natural resources such as water, forests, minerals found in Earth's crust. Second major requirement for production is labor or workforce. These are the people who do the different tasks which are involved in production process. Third requirement of production is the inputs required for different stages of production and these inputs are known as physical capital or just capital. And the most important factor is the entrepreneur who is willing to risk his capital to start a production activity. Physical capital includes inputs like machinery, tools, money, raw material, all these are required for production. Inputs like building of a factory, tools, machinery installed in it and which can be repeatedly used for production year after year. They do not get used up in the production and such inputs are known as fixed capital. Inputs like raw material, money used for buying it, paying the electricity bill, the wages of the workers, all these get used up in the production activity. And these inputs are known as working capital. Fourth requirement of production is human capital. It is the knowledge and effort which is put in to arrange for the other factors such as land, labor, physical capital. All these are required to start the production of goods or services and these factors are known as factors of production. Here in this image we see a factory with several laborers and machines. Use of the land. Hectare is the standard unit for measuring the land and it is equal to 10,000 square meters or the area of a square having the side of 100 meters. Farm production is measured as the yield, which is the total quantity of the crop produced on a piece of land in 1 year. And there are two ways of increasing the farm production. One way of increasing the farm production is to increase the land area under the cultivation, and the other way is to adopt the methods which allow to grow more crops on the same land. Land is a limited resource. Only way to increase the land under cultivation is to convert the wasteland into cultivable land. So wasteland is also again limited. So this method can only increase the farmland very marginally. The two ways to grow more crops on the same land to increase the farm production are multiple cropping and modern farming methods. Let's study in detail about these two methods. Multiple cropping, the method of growing two or more crops on the same land in a year, is known as multiple cropping. In this image we see two types of crops grown on a same piece of land. For example, farmers in the villages, they grow jowar and bajra during the monsoon or kharif season, and these crops are used as cattle feed. Farmers can grow multiple crops in a year as they have access to electrically powered tube wells to irrigate the fields. Less than 40% of the cultivable area in India is irrigated, and it is primarily in the northern and coastal plains region. Traditionally, farming is less expensive but produces a lower crop yield. Farm production is measured as yield, which means total quantity of crop produced on a piece of land in 1 year. Till 1960s, crops were grown using traditional seeds, which required less irrigation and grew very well with natural manure from the cattle dung. Traditional farming is also less expensive because farmer doesn't have to buy many things, but it produces a lower yield of the crop. Not all the villages in India have high levels of irrigation. Apart from the river plains, coastal regions in our country are well irrigated. And in contrast, the plateau regions such as Deccan Plateau, they have low levels of irrigation. Of the total cultivable land in the country, less than 40% is irrigated even today. In remaining areas, the farming is largely dependent on the rainfall. Next is modern farming methods. So Green Revolution in the country 1960, it introduced modern farming methods which used high yielding varieties of seeds and which required a lot of water and application of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Modern farming is expensive because the farmer has to purchase high yielding variety of seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, and he has to pay for electricity, for the installation of tube wells for irrigation. But the crop yield is very high when compared to the traditional farming methods. So in this image we see the modern methods of farming using different machines. Farmers in states such as Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, they were the first to adopt the modern farming methods in India, and the yield got more than double. Land sustainability, Green Revolution in India, this was more successful for some crops when compared to the others. But the adverse effects of modern farming are also there. The adverse effects are prolonged use of large quantity of fertilizers and pesticides. It kills the useful bacteria in the soil, and then it leads to soil degradation and decrease in the fertility of the soil. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides, they percolate to the ground to to pollute the precious underground water resources. Excessive use of groundwater for irrigation through tube wells. This has reduced the water table in many areas. And with the decreasing soil fertility, farmers are forced to use more and more fertilizers to maintain their production levels, and this is increasing the cost of production for farmers and decreasing their income. In India, 80% of the farmers are small farmers who cultivate only the 36% of the total cultivable land in the country. And in comparison, 20% of the medium and large farmers, they own 64% of the total cultivable land in India. So in this image we see the various agricultural works which are carried out in the field during the cultivation. Land distribution between the farmers of Palampur. Land is the main important source for farming, and farming is basically dependent on land. But unfortunately many people do not have sufficient land for agriculture. For Palampur, for instance, here one-third of the majority of the people are Dalits and they do not have land for cultivation. Some of the people who are engaged in agriculture, they do not have sufficient land to run their families. So a major portion of the land is owned by only a handful of farmers. Most of the farmers have to depend on small patches of land. So small plot of land means farmer may not be in a position even to meet his family needs. Landless farmers are the worst because they have to work on others' lands to earn a livelihood. So land is not fairly distributed in the village Palampur. Labor, it is an important factor for production. Farming requires a great deal of hard work, which can be carried out only through efficient labor. Small farmers along with their families, they cultivate their own field. Thus, they provide the labor required for farming themselves. But medium and large farmers, they hire farm laborers to work on their fields. Farm laborers, they either come from landless families or families cultivating small plots of land. So unlike the farmers, the farm laborers do not have the right over the crops grown on the land. They are paid wages by the farmers for whom they work. Wages can be in the form of cash or any other form like a crop. Laborers sometimes get meals also, and wages vary widely from region to region, from crop to crop, and from one farm activity to another, like sowing and harvesting. There is also a wide variation in the duration of the employment. So, a farm laborer may be employed on a daily basis for one particular farming activity, like harvesting, or maybe he may be employed for a whole year. Let's see an example of a laborer working in Palampur. His name is Dala and he is a landless farm laborer who works on the daily wages in Palampur. So this means that he must regularly look for work. The minimum wage set for a farm laborer by the government is rupees 115 per day, but Dala gets only 80 rupees. There is heavy competition for work among the farm laborers in Palampur. Capital for farming. Big farmers usually have surplus cash and the small farmers may need to borrow for buying seeds, fertilizers and farm equipments. So they go to a bank or a cooperative agency to borrow the money. But most of the time they borrow the money from the local merchant or the money lenders. And taking a loan from a local merchant and money lenders is risky because it carries a high rate of interest when compared to what is prevalent in the banks. Large farmers, they produce more than their own requirement and then they sell their surplus at a good profit, and then they lend money to the small farmers. There are many cases when a small farmer is unable to repay the debt on time and they get caught in the debt trap. Sale of the surplus farm produce. So after the harvest, the big farmers are able to produce surplus than what they need for their family, and the surplus farm produce is sold in the nearby markets. Government procures the farm produce at a minimum support price. Merchants from the cities and towns, they purchase the farm produce from the markets of big villages. The farm produce bought by the government is stored in FCI godowns, Food Corporation of India godowns, and they are used through the public distribution. Non-farming activity in Palampur. One-fourth of the population in Palampur, it is engaged in non-farming activities like shopkeeping, dairy activities, manufacturing and transport. So dairy means farmers rear cows and buffaloes so that they can have an extra source of income. They earn the money by selling the milk, and milk is often collected by the milk cooperative societies. Small scale manufacturing. People are engaged in small scale manufacturing like making jaggeries, and primitive machines are used in such activities and family members contribute in the work. Shops. Small shops can be seen in big villages like grocery stores, cloth stores, medicine shops, etc. Other activities. People are also engaged in various economic activities like repairing shops, tuition classes, barber shop, mobile repairing shops, etc. Transportation. People are also engaged in transportation. Some of them pull cycle rickshaw, some may be driving auto rickshaw, jeep, tractor.